Faint ticking clock. Air raid siren in the distance. Rising orchestral drone. Between 1939 and 1945, the world was consumed by fire. A war of empires, ideologies, and vengeance. Nations burned, millions perished, and the world was reshaped forever. This is the story of the Second World War. The tinderbox to understand how it began. We must return to the ashes of the First World War. The Treaty of Versailles humiliated Germany, strangled its economy, and left its people in despair. From that chaos rose anger, and from anger, tyranny. In Italy, Benito Mussolini promised a rebirth of empire. In Germany, Adolf Hitler spoke of purity, vengeance, and destiny. His words ignited a wounded nation. By 1938, Hitler had seized Austria and demanded the Sudetenland. Britain and France, desperate to avoid another war, gave in. Appeasement, they called it peace. But peace built on fear never lasts. In August 1939, Hitler struck a secret deal with Stalin, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, two enemies agreeing to carve up Eastern Europe. Then, on September 1st, 1939, German tanks rolled into Poland. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war. The world had fallen into darkness once more. The Axis ascendancy. Europe fell like dominoes. Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, each crushed under blitzkrieg. Lightning war, tanks, planes, and shock. In France, the Allies collapsed. At Dunkirk, surrounded and hopeless, hundreds of thousands awaited annihilation. But from across the Channel came salvation, fishermen, merchants, and sailors risking everything. Over 330,000 soldiers were saved, but Europe was lost. By June 1940, France had surrendered. Hitler stood triumphant on the ruins of the old order. Only Britain stood defiant. Over the skies of London, the Luftwaffe raged. The Battle of Britain, fought entirely in the air, outnumbered but unbroken, the Royal Air Force held the line. For the first time, Hitler had been stopped. Then, in June 1941, he turned east, invading his former ally, the Soviet Union. Operation Barbarossa. It would become the largest invasion in human history. And far away, across the Pacific, another empire was preparing its own strike, the turning point. On December 7th, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. America was thrust into war. Now it truly was a world at war. The early Axis victories seemed unstoppable, but 1942 would mark the turning of the tide. At Midway, American codebreakers turned ambush into triumph. For Japanese carriers sunk, the Pacific balance shattered. In North Africa at El Alamein, Montgomery's forces defeated Rommel's Afrika Korps. Before Alamein, Churchill said, "We never had a victory. After Alamein, we never had a defeat." And in the frozen ruins of Stalingrad, the German Sixth Army was trapped, starved, and destroyed. The cost was beyond human measure, but the tide had turned. D-Day and the fall of the Reich. By 1944, Allied industry roared like a furnace. The United States, the arsenal of democracy, poured out ships, tanks, and planes in numbers the Axis could never match. On June 6, 1944, the long-awaited Second Front opened. D-Day. The beaches of Normandy ran red with blood, but the Allies broke through. From the west, the British Canadians and Americans advanced. From the east, the Soviet hammer fell. Germany was crushed between two unstoppable forces. By April 1945, the Red Army had reached Berlin. In a bunker deep beneath the city, Adolf Hitler ended his life as his empire collapsed above him. A week later, Germany surrendered. The war in Europe was over. The Pacific in flames. But the war was not yet done. Across the Pacific, the fight against Japan raged on. From island to island, each battle more brutal than the last. Iwo Jima, Okinawa, every inch paid for in blood. President Truman faced a terrible choice. In July 1945, the United States tested a weapon unlike any seen before, the atomic bomb. On August 6, 1945, Hiroshima vanished in a flash of blinding light. 3 days later, Nagasaki followed. Faced with total annihilation, Emperor Hirohito surrendered. On September 2nd, 1945, aboard the USS Missouri, the Second World War ended. The legacy: 70 million dead, cities reduced to ashes, and from the concentration camps, the world saw the unspeakable face of evil. In 1945, the United Nations was born, a fragile hope that humanity might learn from its suffering. But the peace was uneasy. The Iron Curtain fell across Europe, and a new age of tension began. The Cold War, the atomic age, had dawned. Mankind now held the power to destroy itself. World War II was more than a conflict. It was a mirror, reflecting both the darkness and the courage within us all. Slow orchestral swell, fading into silence. This was World War II, the fire that changed the world forever. And World War II was more than a war. It was a defining event that shattered old empires, created new superpowers, and left a legacy of both hope and fear that continues to shape our world today. It showed us the very worst of humanity, and in moments of incredible courage and sacrifice, the very best. If this story moved you, join the journey. Like, share, and subscribe for more untold history story.